Have you ever wondered who would win in a fight between some of the most powerful deities and most powerful gods? Well, today we have Deus fighting Zeus.
Duel 1. Let's rock!
Deus is from Asura's wrath and led the betrayal and blackmail on Asura to go and take Mithra, his daughter. Deus would go from being the commander of the 8 generals to being in charge of the 7 different deities. Then we have Zeus, who is the king of Olympus. He's the god of gods in the Greek mythology. He was the father to Kratos and the one that turned the tides of the Great War with the Titans. So, to decide this fight on who would win, we're going to get into the equipment and abilities along with their feats to see who would come out on top. If you haven't seen my Zeus video, I would recommend checking it out as we go into a bunch of details that I'm going to be summarizing here as well. But let's start with Deus. So Deus, the commander of the 8 generals starting at the beginning of the game. It is implied that being the commander means that they are the most powerful of the different generals that we meet, like Asura or Yasha or August or Wyden and the others. But we do get to find out more on this throughout the game with seeing it along with other folks talking about it. When Asura is blackmailed for killing their emperor, who was over all of the different generals with Deus under his command, Asura goes on a rage and then finds out that his daughter Mithra was kidnapped and decides to go and confront all of the other generals. Once he arrives, he goes to attack and is swiftly stopped by Deus, who wasn't even on screen at the time. So mid-charge, Deus stops Asura and is able to kill him with a powerful lightning attack at the same time. Then when he kills Asura, this is what sends him to Naraka. Then when Asura comes back, he finds out that the generals are now calling themselves the 7 deities. Asura would then go on to fight Wyden, who eventually in their fight would need power from Mithra and get this new form using the mantra power from her. This transforms Wyden into an enormous form that we see that is larger than the planet Gaia that they are on. So we do see that with his size and power that he would easily be able to destroy a planet if he was able to get past Asura at this point. So Asura would go on to defeat Wyden, and here we find out that Wyden was actually the weakest of the deities, where we know that Deus would be on the opposite end of this. So at very early in the game, we have planet feats coming out from the Asura's Wrath game. Then later in the game, Asura would go on to fight August, his former mentor, that would go on to train Asura and Yasha. But when fighting Asura, he was forced to take out his sword, which is called Wailing Dark, to contest with Asura's power. While the two fight, Yasha mentions to Deus that this is the only other time that he has had to pull out his sword in combat, where the other time was against Deus, where Deus would be the victor. We can also look at Asura and Yasha being essentially equal throughout a good amount of the game. Then Yasha goes to face off against Deus by himself. Then, right when Asura arrives, he joins to help Yasha and they have a 2v1 against Deus. So Deus even holding his own against these two for any amount of time would be impressive. This would be the same Asura that had defeated just about every other deity up to this point, including August, who we just went over, who trained both Yasha and Asura, along with Asura literally surviving a blast from the Brahmastra, which was a weapon that was constructed to use the souls of the mortals to fight off Viltra, the strongest being within the Goma that was thought to be unkillable by even Deus and the Emperor before he was killed.
Behold! It is Viltra!
So let's move on to Zeus. So Zeus was able to overwhelm all of the Titans at the same time, which included Atlas, who held the heavens, whose strength alone would be immeasurable. Along with this, Zeus defeated Kronos, who himself had defeated Uranus, the main primordial that quite literally shaped the God of War universe. Along with the fact that Zeus was able to defeat Kratos in the beginning of God of War 2. Yeah, sure, he tricked him into draining his godlike powers, but I digress. Zeus was also noted to be the strongest of the gods, which would include his brothers Hades and Poseidon, who those two needed to work together to defeat the very same Atlas that we just went over, where we have feats from Poseidon where simply his voice would shake the earth. So let's get back to why we're here though. So let's take what Deus has done, where he took on both Yasha and Asura at the same time, where at this point he received a mantra buff from Mithra. Then let's highball and say that the clashing power here between Deus and them in this empowered state against Asura would be on a galaxy level of destructive power. I only mention this because it's at a weird point in the story where there isn't a lot of destruction actually happening, and then where we see Viltra do another feat that we have already hit, where it's a planetary feat of potentially destroying Gaia, where when Deus is defeated, he believes Viltra to be unstoppable even for him. And just for the sake of argument, let's stick with galaxy level or even galaxy supercluster level of attack potency. So for the Greek god, Zeus defeated every single Titan at once, who was responsible for defeating the primordials that I already stated, literally created the universe for the Greek portion of God of War. If I hear, but digital, Zeus used the blade of Olympus, I may cry a little. Since Zeus himself was the one that created the blade and then used it to end the Great War with the Titans, I did also want to mention that while the Blade of Olympus is incredibly powerful, Zeus himself has survived being impaled by it, as well as Kratos at the end of God of War 3. This should speak volumes to just how durable and powerful the King of Olympus is. Deus is nowhere near Zeus's level when it comes to destructive power here. Then, in the world of speed, Deus is very fast, and would be in the massively faster than light category. This is because he was above Asura, who was able to react to the Brahmastra beam that came at a minimum distance of the moon for Gaia. When Asura was in his berserker form also, he was able to react to this beam, and Deus shows that he is much faster than Asura and Yasha as he fought both of them at the same time and was kind of clowning on them for a bit. And let's not forget what I said at the beginning, that Asura was in full charge to save Mithra at the beginning of the game, where Deus, like I already mentioned, wasn't even on screen and was able to stop Asura immediately. Now for Zeus, he would be in the immeasurable speed category, as Kronos literally created time when he was born because the concept of time did not even exist. And then Kronos also had the ability to manipulate it. And since the primordials created it before Kronos was born, by proxy, that would mean immeasurable in speed. But even if you didn't believe this, I'm sure you have heard the Hermes speed feat, where he is able to dodge Helios's light, which filled the infinite underworld, meaning that Hermes himself would be infinite in speed. To add my last note on this speed feats, Kratos was capable of catching Hermes, the one that we just talked about. Then this same Kratos would put on Hermes' shoes to further increase his speed, where Zeus and Kratos would be very close in speed and power. Zeus takes this victory, and let me know if you have other versus ideas. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.